Hello monsters, thanks for stopping by. I thought it would be a good night to take a break from some three-headed beaver slaying. I know some of you are still trying to earn your badges, but tonight we're gonna portal jump to this nice little area. It's got a great view right on top of a mountain and a very creepy old abandoned haunted cabin. But on the good side is they do have a fire pit, and best believe I have a very creepy and campy story to share with you guys. So I hope you guys brought your s'mores. If not, I did bring some. They're in the Jeep on this left-hand side of the cabin. Tonight's story is about two friends who decide to go out to a cabin to do some vacationing. Maybe a little exploring in the woods, but one of the friends is kinda iffy about this whole situation. So I guess we'll see what happens. The story tonight is written by Fearagen. So big shouts out to him, and thanks. And let's also give a big shout out to Pierce Animation for the really cool animation of me. Yeah man, let's be sure not to let this fire get out of hand, and let's ignore the wrestling in the bush over there. And without further ado, let the story begin. Crystalwood Cabin, written by Fearagen. I hate this. Another one of these ideas which sounds like a real hoot. Oh, what was I thinking? A secluded cabin in the middle of the woods? It's the setting of every campy horror movie, and I'm, well, the very idiot these films revolve around. Nice thinking. Still, it was Mark's dream vacation ever since I've known him, and he wasn't the kind of fella who'd ask for a lot. Besides, I felt I owed him after getting him in trouble with his landlord, almost leaving him homeless in the end. But come on, it was our post-graduation party. I couldn't let such an event go underwhelmed. Now, either way, it doesn't matter. What matters was that I was here with him and nobody else in sight. Great. Looking down at the little brochure Mark was sent in the mail, I couldn't help but chuckle a bit. Crystalwood Cabins, huh? I said to myself, looking up. Nothing but the thickening foliage of American basswoods and elms could be seen from just outside the kitchen window, just above the sink. For something with the word crystal in the title, it sure wasn't that clear. I could barely see a few dozen feet past the entrance of the forest, before being obscured completely by the trees that dwelled within. Thick, and didn't even begin to describe how dense this forest was. Little sunlight dared enter the woodland, that much I could tell from here. And while it was later in the afternoon, and the sun was just beginning to set, it looked to be the dead of night in there. There's no way sound could even travel that far through there. What the hell are you doing, John? You were supposed to be helping me unpack the truck? Came an irritated yet familiar voice. I jumped so far back from the sink I nearly knocked over the old 1800s looking vase resting in the middle of the kitchen table. Oh, Mark! Sorry, you caught me by surprise. I blurted out. And no doubt Mark could tell I was on edge about this whole trip. Mark proceeded to bring in both my suitcases, and still managing to carry his knapsack on his broad shoulders. There's no wonder why we used to refer to him as the Beast. Since first year. I couldn't have chosen a lighter load for this trip, he said. I told you we'd only be here for the weekend. I frowned a bit, my heart still pounding. And usually I wasn't so taxing, but I was always prone to anxiety whenever I tried something new. I wanted to be prepared for anything. Besides, exploration wasn't exactly my kind of thing. I've seen so many movies where a group of college graduates go out to explore the unpopulated regions of the woods, only to realize that it wasn't quite what it was chalked up to be. And cliched or not, these things do happen, and I wasn't prepared to be the victim of such horrific acts. Plus, a few changes of underwear wouldn't hurt anyone, I thought. You're right, I said, but you also said we were going to go exploring deep within the forest. So I wanted to be prepared. There's bound to be wild animals, bad weather, heck, even the odd bear trap or two. You wouldn't want to be unprepared, would you, Mark? Mark dropped my suitcases, looking at me strenuously. I did, and I am prepared for all of that, and more. It's all right there, he said, pointing to his hiking bag. And that? There? Trusty backpack? I shied away. Well, you see, it's really only for... Shut up, Mark interrupted. I get it. You're nervous, and it's fine. Everyone gets like that their first time exploring. Mark smiles, placing his bag on the floor next to both of mine, inching ever so slightly towards me. But trust me, we won't get lost, and we won't get attacked. That's why I picked this place, in fact, Mark says, looking around before turning his attention back on me, still smiling. You see, according to the brochure, there's only 6 lots available to the public, each separated by only 2 miles of trees. If we get lost, we have a fair chance of bumping into one of those cabins. Besides, you're exploring with a guy who's been through more caves than he can count. Mark's expression changed to that of an honor roll student, after he just found out he had made top of the class for the year. You can barely count to 10, Mark, I said, unamused and no more reassured than before. Hey, I made it through grade 12 math, he replied defensively. I don't know, Mark. I'm just still iffy about this place. Something just doesn't seem right, I replied. Maybe if you lay off the horror movies every now and then, Mark responds. Mark, I say, slightly annoyed. I've told him many times over, horror movies do not scare me. If anything, they make me more resourceful, more aware. Alright, I'll tell you what, he continues. You unpack the suitcases you so rudely left for me to bring in. I'll go take a look around the woods. Wait, already? I asked, quite surprised at his rush. Wasn't it the plan to take it easy today and keep the exploration for tomorrow? I couldn't help but feel my heartbeat increase after hearing Mark's plan to begin the endeavor today. The last thing I wanted was a missing person the first day we arrived. We are, he said, but rule number 1 of exploring, be familiar with your surroundings. I feel it's best if I go out now and get acquainted with them before we venture off tomorrow. As unsure as I was about the plan Mark had just laid out in front of me, I had no choice but to accept it, as he was the only one with all the experience. Well, alright, I said uneasily. Just be sure not to alert any strangers now, I added as a joke. Mark shook his head in silence. Reaching into his pocket, he pulled out the keys to his truck, before throwing them on the kitchen table next to me. In case you need to escape. He finished, showing that cocky smile of his once more. He then walks out of the door and into the heavy wall of trees surrounding us. I took a deep breath. He really had a way of getting to me. How was it that I got stuck into this trip again? It couldn't have just been because we're best friends. Because believe me I wouldn't have signed up for this shit if this was how he would behave. I needed to do something, anything, to get my mind away from what my inner demons can think up next. At least it's a good reason to do the unpacking, I thought to myself. I usually hated unpacking, probably more than packing, but if it will keep my thoughts at bay, I'm all in. After about a solid 20 minutes, when the last of Mark's clothes had been put away in the second bedroom's closet, I received a text. It was Mark. Hey, dude, you won't believe what I just found. It's a shed with a bunch of old, rusty farm tools and such. It must have been around since the 1900s when the cabins were made. Dude, this is so cool. It will definitely be something to explore when we go out tomorrow. I'm pretty sure there's plenty more on this path. Anyways, I'll be coming back now. An old shack. Great. I wonder what I'll get into next. An old home? Maybe some abandoned graveyard? Oh, that would be just great. I figured now would be the best of times to take a nice, long, warm shower to help ease my troubles. Something about water always managed to calm my nerves. Letting the water wash the stress away, I didn't let any second go to waste. And after what must have been 15 minutes, I stepped out. Drying myself off, stepping into clean clothes, and applying a fresh coat of body spray. I felt as good as new, and to my surprise, stress-free. That was, however, until I picked up my phone that I left on the kitchen table. Turning it on, I was in shock to see 5 notifications, all of which were from my best friend Mark. Dude, I know I said I was coming back, but I just have to look a little more into this. This is so cool. Okay, this place is giving me the creeps. I'm out. LOL. Did you come in after me? I swear I just heard someone walking around the cabin. Seriously, dude. If this is you, you better fucking stop. I get it. There can be crazy people in the woods, but please, just stop. What the fuck? Immediately, the fears I had once thought were washed away by the warmth of the shower had returned. Panicking, I dialed his number and placed the phone next to my ear. Pick up. Pick up. Pick up. I muttered urgently. All of what I said, all of what I thought, it came flooding back into my mind. Was he being chased? Were we not alone in the forest after all? Was this another horror movie situation waiting to happen? Immediately, I was brought to Mark's answering machine, but before I could put the phone down to dial 911, I noticed something rather strange. Mark's answering machine, it changed. Hey, this is Mark. The message went on, separated only by the subtle sounds of his heavy breathing. I'm currently on vacation at the Crystalwood Cabin in North Carolina. If you need me. There was a long pause. So long I almost thought that was the end of the message. Before he finished. Come find me. I dropped the phone on the table, placing both my hands on my head. This can't be happening, I thought. This all seemed very strange to me, but being the movie kind of guy I was, this usually ended up in one thing. Death. I was reassured upon receiving the 6th notification from Mark. I'm back. I can see you through the window. Haha. Placing the phone back on the table, I slowly turned to face the very window I peered through no more than an hour ago. Sure enough, I could see someone. Mark? They were standing right by the edge of the tree line. The sun, at this point, had set a reasonable amount behind the leaves of the trees. I couldn't make out much, but I could make out enough. This person, who was not Mark, was entirely naked apart from the boxers he wore. The face, while I couldn't make out any details, did resemble that of Mark's, but the body was far from his. The man, standing near the trees, was scrawny, much scrawnier than me, in fact, and he was bleeding. He looked to be bleeding from several gashes all over his body. Many questions filled my brain, but one thing was for sure. I needed to find out where Mark was, and I needed to get the hell out of here. That's when I noticed the man. He was walking closer, close enough and that I could make out more, and more details. He was in fact in his boxers, and he did not look much like Mark. But the reason for this became apparent as he approached. This guy, he was wearing Mark's skin like a suit. The eyes, I could tell, had been ripped out with a dull blade. The rest of his face had been quite forcefully ripped off. The lips had been cut out, and the remnants of white plasma fluid could be seen dripping down the chin of what used to be Mark's face. The rest of the body had been plastered sloppily on this man, being held up by nothing more than the blood beneath the freshly peeled skin. That's when I noticed the rusty, old axe the stranger was carrying in his left hand. Wasting no more time, I ran to the table, grabbing my phone and the keys Mark left behind, opening the front door and rushing to the truck. I knew that if there was one thing nobody did in a horror movie, this was it. Escape. Tears began flooding my eyes as the realization of what just happened kicked in. But nothing prepared me for what I was to witness next. The truck, once new and without a single scratch, had "Stay" carved into the passenger door, while the driver's side's window had been completely smashed open, revealing a missing steering wheel. There was no escape, and just like my imagination, it all came crashing down. This was no movie. There was no hope, and freaks like this do exist. Before I could react to all I had just witnessed, however, I could feel him, his hot, humid breath caressing the back of my neck. My eyes closed, anticipating what was to happen next. As pain immediately swept through the back of my head, a clear picture faded into stars, which faded into red. I began to sway before utter blackness filled my vision. I was right. Well, I guess those two aren't going on any more vacations. Guess they won't be tweeting out any photos of their vacation now, will they? Oh, and Monstaz, that rustling in the bush, oh, that was just a rare baby albino three-headed beaver. Very rare we get to see those, so let's see if you guys can catch it. Maybe one of you will earn that badge tonight. And again, Monstaz, let's give a big shout out to the writer of this story, Fearagen. And big shouts to Pierce Animation. If you want to check them out, be sure to check out their links in the description below. And while you're down there, be sure to leave a comment. And for everyone, I mean everyone who likes this video, you'll be receiving a mysterious item through teleportation. Now you can't open this for 2,000 years, but it'll be at your house in probably 5 seconds or so, right after you hit that like button. And again, Monstaz, big shouts to you guys. And I hope you enjoyed the video. And like always, Monstaz, till next time.
Relax, Massimo.